I think now what God's used golf for is just, yes, my handicap's getting better. Yes, I'm getting better at the game. Yes, I love being outdoors, and anything that gets me outdoors, I love. But I'm falling in love with the connection that it's providing.
All right, season 4, episode 5, everyone. Welcome to the Restoration Club podcast. Pretty pumped about where we are. Danny, what is happening out here?
It's plenty hot. I'll say that much, man.
I mean, it's hotter than a Georgia biscuit, they say. I don't even know what that means, but I remember a buddy in college always says hotter than a Georgia biscuit. But yeah, you're right. Sweltering is what's going on. I don't know where everyone is in the whole country, but I feel like everywhere is hot.
I hope everybody's getting some rounds in, but I don't blame you if you don't want to be out there.
That is a very true. Either do some dew sweeping or twilight chasing. One of those two things is probably the best way to make it happen. But we are excited about today's episode. We've got Brandon Wolfe who's going to join us. Absolutely powerful story. After listening to the whole thing again, I knew a lot of his story already. Danny, I'm kind of blown away again. What a story.
We should say this about every episode, I think, but especially this one. If anybody's listening to just the intro right now, whether it's on any channel, I cannot recommend more that you guys sit with this one and listen to the full thing. So definitely listen in.
Yeah. And with that, guys, we're going to move it over to the clubhouse and have the story of Brandon Wolfe join us. We'll talk to you guys soon. We're really excited about having a dear friend of the program, we'll call it, Brandon Wolfe joining us today, who I had the privilege of meeting April of 2025. It was where we met at a Wild at Heart boot camp in Fraser, Colorado, of all places. And such a cool thing, but I'm not going to steal any of Brandon's thunder. Brandon, welcome to the clubhouse. And, just as a matter of reference, since we know you, why don't you tell everybody else maybe a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. Thanks, guys, for having me. I'm super humbled to be here. Definitely following in some footsteps of some heavy hitters you guys have had. I listened to the Danny Woodhead episode today, and it's like, man, I don't know why these guys asked me to be on here, but I haven't done anything crazy like that. But no, super grateful, and what you guys are doing is amazing. I'm grateful to be a part of it, for sure.
That's good. But, where are you located?
I'm East Central Florida, small town guy. Kind of where the space shuttle goes up is where I'm born and raised, and have chose to put down roots with the family. But I was born and raised here in Melbourne. We're just, like I said, in the shadow of the Cape, along the east coast of Florida. Great place to raise kids, very beachy vibe, small town community, a lot of golf, a lot of outdoor water sports and activities, big time surfing and things like that. So yeah, it's a great place to grow up. It's a great place to raise kids, and it's where I've been here now for a little while and settled down with got 3 kids. I'm a father of 3, girl, boy, girl, and then married for 16 years to my wife, Chelsea. And we met just after college, and I've been married. We got married about a month after she graduated from University of Florida. So
yeah. Gators, chop it up. I know how it works.
Yes.
That's how. Yeah, you're a diehard. It's fine. It's okay to be who you are. Yeah. It's cool because like you're a Florida guy, right? Born and bred. Is that
born and raised? Yeah.
Yeah.
Moved away for a couple of years in college and lived out in Southern California, and then did a little semester in Hawaii. Yeah. Mostly just chasing waves.
Yeah, I was going to say like surf, a little, hey bro, that kind of stuff. Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I love it. What's your, like when you talked about raising a family down that way, what's your, what gives you that reason to say that?
Yeah, I think the thing that we love here so much is just, one, where we live, it's it's a skateboard path to the beach or a skateboard to the intercoastal, and we can fish in the morning and surf in the afternoon, or take the kids out in the boat and go tubing. Or actually just this last week was pretty sweet. I got to take the boat across with some buddies to the Bahamas. So we're in the Bahamas in 3 hours, spear fishing, shooting fish for 2 days, come home and got enough fish in the fridge to feed the family for the week. So it's that kind of coastal laid back vibe, really chill. A lot of opportunity to play golf. Took the kids to the range tonight in between thunderstorms, and it comes down, and then 5 minutes later it's all sunny. So we got out to the track, and the kids were putting in some work, and lightning's popping all around, and they're like, "Are we safe?" And I'm like, "Yeah, we're under a metal roof. It's all right."
And you've got a club in your hand. You're fine. Don't worry
Fatherly
about it.
wisdom. I like it.
But yeah, it's just that vibe, that lifestyle that we've got here that I love. And then the other piece is the community. You know, I think where you live, the community matters. And we got a crew of probably, 100 people here or so. I still like to call it a small town, but Melbourne's kind of grown to, we've got a bunch of the space contractors and all those guys are here. So it's really kind of blown up. When you have, Top Golf and all that kind of stuff in your town, it's not so small anymore, but it still feels like a small town community. And you go to the grocery store, you see each other and you kind of know each other. You see each other. Everybody goes to different churches or what have you. But when the guys are together, we host a guys' night. We're really involved in some men's ministry stuff here and some intentional leadership and mentoring to some of the younger kids in our community. And so when you see them, it's just like, man, how could we ever leave? I mean, my heart calls to the mountains. It was great where we were last year and in Fraser and Winter Park, and it's just beautiful. You get the seasons, but man, when God's brought you into a community such as what we have, it's irreplaceable.
Yeah, I had this really what I did not expect of a front row look at that as we were in that. We're sharing this dorm room with like 13 bunks in there, and all of us are bunked out. And you've brought this rabble rouser group of like, how many guys did you bring to this thing? Was it like 14?
Yeah, I think so. On that trip, yeah.
But like, it was probably one of the most special moments I'd ever witnessed. What was true community? I watched it. It wasn't that it was just, oh, let's listen to Brandon lead us around. Like, these were young men leading the way themselves and taking charge and being just incredible ambassadors for the faith, but also like a proof positive, good community, especially when people invest and pour into them. So, I wish people could have seen what that whole weekend was about, at least from the vantage point I had, because it still sits with me. I mean, it's a year later and I'm still thinking about that was such a powerful thing to witness, like so many layers of different things that men were wrestling with in general, but seeing young people grasp it and then keep running with it's really powerful.
Yeah, it was really cool. And it's cool now, even a year later after that, to see some of those guys' stories and how things have unfolded. It's pretty impactful, the ripple effect.
Yeah. How do you, how would you say, like, how do you keep that fire going? How do you keep cultivating that in that community? How does that, like, there's no magic formula, but what is it for that you guys have found as a way that seems to really work for your people?
Yeah, I think the constant connection, not being isolated. I think that's one of the biggest lies that the enemy wants to tell us and get us to a place of feeling alone and isolated, kind of in a corner. Stuff's going to happen in life. John 10:10 is one of my favorite verses. He talks about, I've come to give you life and life to the full. But if you back up right before that, it talks about your enemy is a prowling lion, and he's coming for you. But the hope we have in the Lord is that we have life. We can have life and life to the full. And I think in community, constant contact, it's really helpful. I mean, a lot of those young guys that we took to that retreat that you talked about, they're in their early 20s, just graduating college, about to start career, not married, none of that kind of stuff. And really the greatest ministry that I've been a part of. And, dive into my story some a little bit as we chat. But, I've been a Christian for almost 30 years. And I think I'm just scratching the surface now that I've just rounded 40 into what I think Jesus meant when he met, going and sharing the gospel and loving on. We've got this small aeronautical college in our town, and you met some of the guys that are in that school or just graduated. A couple of them now. TJ, who was with us, he just got promoted. He's 2 years with Delta now. He's a captain.
Crazy.
And I'm like,
That's
25-year-old guy flying my plane. I don't know, man. But
you want to be him when you grow up, is what you're saying?
It's just been literally my wife and I will invite a handful of those guys over. We've got the 3 kids, and we'll be like, hey, night. Send out a text to 20 guys, and 15 or 20 of them will show up. They want free steak, but they're sitting at the dinner table with my 3 kids and with my wife, and they're asking questions about girls. They're asking questions about life, and then they're seeing us put our kids to bed. And just through that, the Lord has done so much work into these young guys. One being like, I want to be you. Not that I'm some special person, but like, this is a win. Not that I make a certain amount of money or have a certain house or drive a certain car. Nothing from a worldly standpoint. It's, I want to be a dad. I want to be a husband. I want to be someone who's been married for more than a couple years, like all of those things. And in that has been the Holy Spirit giving opportunity to be like, well, I actually did a bunch of stupid things and, you know, landed here. It's because of the Lord's grace, you know, and that again, back to like the enemy has been after my life since my birth. And it's just God has come to give me life and life to the full. And through, I think, constant contact, friendships, and interaction, we're able to challenge each other and really bounce ideas off of each other, come to each other when we're going through difficult times, and have that, that iron sharpen iron. As cheesy as it sounds, but it's true. I think the constant contact has been what's allowed us to get to a place where our community is thriving, and it's unique and rare because we're all allowing each other to ask questions and having those open doors. If that makes sense.
I think it makes a ton of sense. And I was going to jump in just to dig into it a little bit more. And Brandon, I know the conference that you guys were at was a Wild at Heart conference. And I know you've expanded what that looks like on the home front, and you've already started to speak to it. I'm just curious to ask, you're a dad of three. I'm a dad of three. Ryan has kids. We're all married. We all have jobs. Where do you think you've been stretched, and how do you increase that capacity to still have the heart to pursue these guys and show them community and what that looks like?
Yeah, I mean, margin is the smallest it's maybe ever been right now in life. And I think the short answer is that God's just put so much blessings in our life, and we've seen just so much fruit from what He's done and His faithfulness, that how can we not be faithful? Even if we're just giving an open door and some free steaks to some kids, it doesn't mean that like I got to be on and give some sermon or anything. Literally just opening the door and giving them a seat at the table. And then through that, God's doing all the work. Like I said, I listened to the Danny Woodhead talk today, and it's just like, all those times that it would have been great to be drafted first. It would have been great to just go right out there and do all of it. But God has just such a different plan. And I think that in our Christian walk, we think it's going to be like, hey, we're going to walk up and share the gospel, and somebody's going to be like, yeah, let me have that. Or we're going to go out and, it's just going to be, everything's going to be so regimented and life is just going to be on cruise control. I think with three kids, life is crazy. I think, the more you get like deeper into marriage, you realize how selfish you are. And it's really not the other person's problems. That like your first 5 years of marriage, you thought, oh, she does this, and it's, it's her. It's really me. And so I think all those things are always going to be there. I think just opening the door and allowing God to come in. And I do think there's different seasons. There's seasons where, hey, we have more opportunity to give back. We have more opportunity to kind of be more forward focused and mindset and all those kinds of things. But I think with the Lord, we just had a devotional yesterday with the kids, and it's just God's love is unconditional, and there's nothing we could ever do or not do that's going to have Him change in any way. So if we can come to a place of just settling in, getting validation from the Lord, and that we're, His. John 6:29 says, the work of the Lord is simply to believe. I know, Ryan, when you and I played Stream Song, we kind of had that thought. And, you asked that question, hey, what's the work of the Lord? Like, what's the greatest thing I could do for the Lord? And it's like, hey, I could go win these disciples, or I can go and raise these great kids, or I can go and do these. And all those things are wonderful and they're biblical. But the work of the Lord is simply to believe who He is and who He says He was. And that's enough. And I think when we come to that place, we can really settle into just like whatever God has for us at whatever season, we can really be effective when we're not trying to have our own agenda. Whatever margin you have to spare at the time, it's enough.
Yeah,
it's enough.
Good. That, that talk about the work of the Lord being believe, and it erect me like in a good, and I know it's sometimes a cliche word that gets thrown around, but it really did, because I think I come from such a programmatic faith sometimes that I'm still stuck in the old youth pastor mode, or just trying to move people from box to box. So you go from being in a children's ministry to youth ministry, then you're going to join the young adults, and then you're going to go on to be the middle of the road. You're probably going to be a deacon, elder, then you're going to be in the senior ministry, and all this other stuff happens. And to believe. And that's the one thing that the Lord's called us to. And when you do that, though, that's when, like, you don't have to do all the other stuff. It's like, it just plays out, right? Like the margin becomes even wider than what you even think it is. Yeah, it feels thin at times, but you're like, oh, there is space and there is time. This is what the Lord's allowing at this season and this time. It's such a powerful statement. It's been written there the whole time. Like, why am I shocked by this sentence, this fact that's been written forever? So just a good point.
Brandon, remind me, how old are your kids?
6, 7, and 11. Yeah.
Okay. So mine
Yeah.
are just a bit older. So I'm just going to ask selfishly. And you talk about having a tight margin, but I think we probably have a lot of followers, a lot of listeners that are in a similar season. You know, you already hit on doing a family devotional. Where do you think God has kind of stretched you in this season to still be intentional to invest in your kids? And what does that look like? Or what do you feel like he's telling you to do in this season to invest in them?
Yeah, I think, trying to find individual daily time with each of them. It seems crazy to say, hey, I'll give you each 10 minutes. That's 30 minutes of my day, which doesn't seem like a lot. So that's a part of it. And then the other piece is, I'm pretty deep in my career right now. About to have an interview with a younger guy tomorrow. We've got a team that I run. And I think, the thought is that when I pull in the driveway at the end of the day, I literally am praying, Lord, give me the best to give to those I love the most. And that's really where my mindset is, not to give them the leftovers, not to give them whatever's left from me or what I have, from a mental capacity, but to give them my best and whatever that is. And sometimes that's coming in and cooking dinner and just, tonight we played a game, but it's really being intentional about trying to give them my best at the end of the day. And some days that's works out great. And some days I'm smoked and it's hard, it's not all rosy all the time, but today was a bike ride with my youngest and then a card game with my son. And then, like I said, we got to go 30 minutes in the rain to the track man and got a little work in at the range. And I took both of them with me. That's the other thing I think in maturity or age or whatever you want to call it. I've learned that, your kids are kind of just allowed to just be a part of your life. I don't need to go to the range and get the best, time I need in. It's, hey, dad, watch me. Dad, watch me. I hit 5 balls and my son's behind my back, stealing all the balls out of my bucket, and he's just smacking them as fast as he can, trying to hit the range driver, because I taught him that, we did that one time. I'm like, buddy, you hit him, we're getting a milkshake. And he's ever since, it's just like, yeah. But
I think young. I like it.
I think I've realized that, my life is something to be enjoyed with them. And so I think that's been really beneficial in this season too, with that 6 and 7-year-old, because now they're able to hang with dad and they don't need mom as much. And so we'll go out, even if it's for an hour somewhere, and we'll bike to the beach and go for a walk, or I'll take them out behind the boat and we'll go, teach them how to wakeboard or whatever. So we're getting those things incorporated to where they've become really a part of my daily life. I mean, there's not anything that I do that they can't do if they want to. So it's always an invitation to, hey, I'm going to go, work out. And they're out there working out, mostly trying to get protein shakes, which are really like chocolate milk, essentially for them.
I think it's cool. The intentionality of the inclusion piece, Brandon, is very important. You already mentioned when we started this that you guys have these invite the steak night. They're at the table with you. And it's not just that they're not sitting underneath the table listening to you talk, but they're watching. And I think what the best part is they're allowed to be participants in that. And I think that's the greatest way to learn. It's not just from, hey, here's a rule of life and here's the gospel, now go do it. But it's like, watch how I do this and then figure out where you fit into it. And then here's your chance to have permission to be. And I think it's so cool. Well done.
Yeah, thanks. I appreciate that. There's a story that goes along with that a few years ago kind of shaped my mindset. And it was one of the mentors that I have, Morgan Snyder, who's a part of Become Good Soil, was part of the Wild at Heart stuff. But he was sharing I think this is a fake story, but it really hit home in the sense of, he was at a funeral, and at the funeral, he talked about this man that he really knew and was a mentor and did all these wonderful things. And then afterwards, the daughter of the man got up, and she's an adult at this time. And she said, that man sounds amazing, but I never knew him. And I think from a ministry standpoint, I think that's one of the areas that really rocked me in that, man, if I can get my kids and us to do ministry together in the sense of, I mean, really just loving on people. And it's these college age kids that are coming into our house, and we're just, like I said, we're opening the door, feeding them food and loving on them. And yes, we're sharing the gospel. We're having some fire nights where we have an older man in the community come and share his story. And there's no questions that you can hold back on. Any question that happens is anything that arises, you ask the guy the question, and these guys are gracious enough to be open and honest and share. And it's been beautiful. Well, my kids greet everybody that walks in the door, and they're a part of it. And it's cool to see that that's who their dad is. And it's also cool to see that, hey, it's cool to share Jesus with everyone who walks in, and to just be that, I don't know, fluent and just like free with it all, I think has been really where the Lord's had me the last few years. And just that ability to just, hey, they're a part of the journey just as much as I am, and they're an integral part of that journey as well. And so I just think holding nothing back on who I am to them, and also that's allowed us to really do life together, as cheesy as it sounds.
Not no cheese at all. They're not accessories, right? They're not just dangling around like, oh, look at, let me put them on a leash and walk them around. No, this is real life. And if we really want to make generational impact, we will include our families in this walk. No matter what our family looks like, we'll include them in it. And I think it's valuable. And number one, it's great advice for me. Even I've got two grown daughters, one 24 and one 22. And then I have two young boys at 6 and almost 5 years old. So I've got this new dichotomy of walking and going down the path, but I definitely like am gleaning the wisdom of where I didn't necessarily do it with two daughters always. They know their dad pretty well. They watch, they know exactly the type of person I am, but like to be able to walk with my sons now and kind of at a new season of life, well more seasoned, way more salt on this salt and pepper hair than ever. It's important for them to like for us to be doing it together and for them to come along in the process. I think it's a good bit of wisdom that I'm glad I'm hearing now instead of when they turn 20 going, oh man, I wish I would have had that time back. Like, no, let's go out and do it. Like, yeah, I can't take them to the golf course right now. It'd be chaos. I'd be kicked out of every golf course in America right now, but because they can't stand too still. But in time, they'll be driving that car soon enough, or we'll find something that we still do. We still take walks in the neighborhood. We go to the park. We do. And when we go to the park, I'm not sitting over on the bench like most of the parents just watching their kids. Like I'm climbing on the structure. I'm seeing where they're going. I'm trying to go, hey, let's try to build this thing out of sticks and let's stack the rocks up as high as we can, because why wouldn't I also enjoy the process with them and be inclusive?
Exactly. Yeah.
Good.
Brandon, you touched on taking them to the range and being intentional in that space. So I'll transition us just a bit. And I'm really curious only because I think your response probably will be different than a lot of guests that we've had. So just to ask you, where did golf come into the equation for you?
Yeah, for sure. And I think to answer that question, it's kind of a loaded question. I'll give you a little bit of my background, a little bit of my story. Grew up, born and raised here in this small East Coast, Central Florida town, like I mentioned. And I grew up in a pretty rough situation. Both of my parents just, and I think with wisdom, maturity, and a lot of counseling years later, I've been able to, we like to think our story starts when we're born, but our story starts so far ahead of that. What were our parents dealing with? What were their parents dealing with? What kind of story were they born into? And I think, what did they, have to endure to get to a place where they had kids? And I think both my parents were young and just, I think not validated. My dad was a very invalidated man, and my mom was just, she wasn't seen, and I think every man and woman, those are their two greatest questions is, do I have what it takes for a man? And then for a woman, am I seen? And am I lovely? Am I beautiful? And I think they're just two very wounded people from their parents. And my dad was an abusive alcoholic. My mom was just trying to do her best raising 3 boys. I was the oldest of 3 boys. And so very early on, divorce and infidelity and all that on my dad's part. My mom did the best she could, but my dad was very physically abusive. And so he used to come home and just be, drunk and beat us. And, I was 6, 7 years old at the time. I remember at 7 during a custody exchange, my mom was asking for child support and my dad didn't want to give it to her. And so he just got in the car and she kind of, came at him again. And then he just turned around and punched her in the face and knocked her out unconscious. And I remember at 7, he gets in his car and drives away. And I'm there with my 2 brothers and my mom's unconscious on the concrete floor. I'm going to the payphone to call for an ambulance, and riding in the back of an ambulance with my mom to the hospital, and just kind of, then we got picked up and, lived in a battered and abused women's shelter for a while. So I'm literally homeless, living on the street with my mom and my brothers. And, lots of things kind of happened, and we ended up moving in with my aunt and uncle. Both my parents went to jail for various reasons. And so we were living with some family and started to go to church at 9 years old. And that was my first exposure to kind of Christianity or any of that. I wanted nothing to do with it, kind of being a product of what's modeled for you, I started just doing stupid things as a 9-year-old. I burned my house down when I was 7. You know, all kinds of playing with matches and all kinds of stuff. And then fast forward to 9, and started going to church for a few weeks, and then a week later, I was at a friend's house, and they thought it would be fun to lock me in the bathroom that had a doggy door to the backyard. Well, no parents were home at the time, and they had a 150-pound. Their dad was a police officer. Had a 150-pound Rottweiler that was in the backyard. So I go in the bathroom, lock. The dog comes in, sees me, and starts to attack me. And so it went straight for my head, went straight for my neck, and I'm on the tile floor. Still remember the tile. Still remember the color of the grout, all that stuff at 9. And this dog's attacking my head, and I just started to pray, Jesus help me, because that Sunday before that, the Sunday school teacher's lesson was, hey, the best prayer you can pray is Jesus help me. There's power in the name of Jesus. So I just started praying, Jesus help me. I don't know how many times I said it. And the dog let go of me, went out the doggy door, and left. And then I woke up and was unconscious. People were holding towels over my neck, blood just everywhere. Ended up having 150 stitches in my head alone. All kinds of stuff on my neck. Yeah, just about died, bled to death. But I was saved miraculously. And, I had to spend some time rehabbing for a few months with my wounds and different things. And the Sunday school teacher opened up her house. She had a condo on the beach overlooking the ocean. And that's kind of where I fell in love at 9 years old with the ocean and the beauty of it all. And fast forward a few months after that, and I moved back in with my dad. He gets his own apartment at the time. And I just remember at 9 years old, getting in the car to go to school, looking at him and being like, I don't want to grow up to be you. And so he drove me to the Sunday school teacher's place of business and dropped me off. And she's 33 years ago. And my mom had pieced out by that time. And so literally at 9 years old, I'm abandoned by both my mom and dad, and end up getting adopted into this family by this local community that took me in. And my dad took my brothers and moved back to another state where he was originally from. But I kind of became this only child for the Sunday school teacher became my grandmother, and this family of missionaries that adopted me into their home. And so I'm living with this family, and my first introduction to golf is we go out. We live by a golf course, and at night we go out on the golf course, and there's a creek that runs through the golf course, as most, in Florida, there's a lot of water. Obviously, if you play golf, there's a ton of water in Florida. And a lot of balls go in the water. And so at night, me and my adoptive father would bolt out on the golf course with flashlights, and we try to fill up 5-gallon buckets. And so that's, without a golf club in my hand, that's literally the greatest memory I have on a golf course. And we started to play every birthday of mine and birthday of his. And that's what we did for a long time, is really just twice a year we'd play golf. Neither one of us were very good, but it was fun. I'd rent a cart and I'd get to drive it. And that was my, teen years. And so I started to play more in high school and college, but not as much. But those are my first great memories with golf. So sorry for the loaded question, but I had to explain the backstory.
Thank you. Thank you for breaking that down.
That's powerful, man. I mean, first of all, your story is absolutely ridiculous. I'm picturing this boy, 9 years old, on the floor, and just the process of the Lord doing what he does and answering prayers. And there's someone listening right now that needs to ask Jesus to help them. They hear this, and they whatever the level of whatever dog's attacking them right now, they need Jesus to help them. And so we encourage whoever's out there listening to this, that they would call. They would call on the name of Jesus and realize that that's the help you can have. And it's a testimony to you, your resiliency, but it's to one that God has built through you. And so it's really powerful to hear it. And then the beauty of how the game then becomes involved into your life, because I'm picturing filling up buckets, which is by the way, when you find a honey hole, that's awesome. You start just like, it's an amazing feeling when you find that spot where all the balls are going. Yeah.
Keep your finished for a year to come.
Right here, and everybody goes out there once a year and they lose their balls in the water. So it's pretty easy. Yeah, in
That's
Florida, the
awesome.
only issue you have is you got to watch out for the gators and you got to watch out for the moccasins.
I mean,
But at
it's
10 and
all worth
11,
it.
I didn't really think about that. So
No. So then, that occasional golfing and things like that, what does that look like now for you? Like in terms of golfing, where you've gone, what you're doing, those types of things?
yeah, it's changed so much, and it's pretty cool. Talking about prayer too, and just I think we want to complicate prayer into this. It has to be this big, beautiful thing, and you got to have all these dots and check all the boxes. But even today, in my professional career, or chimney sweep, whatever we want to call it, it's much bigger scale, and I'm dealing with millions of dollars and things I'm doing. I'm on the commercial retail development side, so I'm building grocery centers and shopping centers and all that kind of stuff, finding locations and tying up millions of dollars worth of dirt, and then going and working with these great national tenants and having these relationships. But, you know, I walk into a meeting and I've got millions of dollars on the line, and I still think the greatest prayer ever is Jesus help me. And it's still a daily prayer. God give me wisdom, all of those things. And there's so much power in that simplicity. But yeah, today it's, in my career and in my scope there, really the last year and a half, especially since I met Jeff Marsh. So I met Jeff Marsh sitting in a hot tub in Colorado at the same retreat center
What a place.
a few years ago. And we just started talking about golf and life. And at the time, he was living in an RV in Florida with his family. And they were on the road trying to kind of find their landing spot. They had left Washington and were trying to find someplace new. And it was the week before Thanksgiving, actually. And Jeff's like, yeah, we're in Florida. And I'm like, yeah, we're on the East Coast. And he's like, oh, you're right around the corner. And I was like, what are you doing for Thanksgiving? He's like, I don't know. I think we're just going to be in the RV. And I was like, well, I got a house with a pool, and I've got some friends that have a golf cart you can borrow and take it to the beach and just live in a house for the week because I'm going to be in North Carolina. And so he moved in my house for the week of Thanksgiving.
Awesome.
And we didn't know each other at all. I kind of kicked off the relationship, but he's really helped get me back into golf and more of it. But with the career, I think, in the last 12 months, really the last 6 months, I've been forced to be out on the golf course a lot and forced to be on the golf course with clients and friends and all kinds of people. And I think, Ryan, you and I played Stream Song. It's been 8 months ago. And I think at the time I was like an 18. No, I was like a 21 or 22 handicap. And in the last 6-8 months, I've gotten down to a 13. And so it's been a lot of golf on the golf course, which is great. And obviously it's fun to have good contact with the ball and not be chasing balls all over the place. But I think the thing that God's really shown me so much through golf is, in my childhood and kind of the story I just shared, is so much abandonment, so much isolation, so much just lack of connection. And, even lighting the woods on fire, all I was striving for was connection. And I think, obviously in the wrong way, but I think now what God's used golf for is just, yes, my handicap's getting better. Yes, I'm getting better at the game. Yes, I love being outdoors, and anything that gets me outdoors, I love. But I'm falling in love with the connection that it's providing. It's giving me an opportunity to build relationships for work that are, have monetary gain for sure. But that's such a backseat and such a minor thing compared to the connection. And honestly, even a little emotion that I'm feeling talking about it is just that 7, 8, 9-year-old boy who lacked connection, and God's bringing it about in such a beautiful way, in such a way that like only He can do, and so much unfathering that I had and so much of that lack. Now God has just come full circle, and not to just keep quoting it, but He's come to give life and life to the full. And I think the longer we walk with the Lord and trust Him, the more we realize, man, He's so good, and that none of our pain is ever wasted. And so that connection that I'm having now is just obviously connection with the club and the ball is great, but the connection from a relational standpoint has just been really rich and nourishing to that young Brandon.
Yeah, that's good. I'm reminiscing to our time like at Stream Song where we're just walking, walking blue, and just the time spent and the conversations were way more fruitful. I mean, there were good shots hit, there were good times had, food was wonderful, all the stuff was great, but it was really just something about these 4 guys walking together and could have been talking about anything, and here we are trying to figure out what's the greatest thing we could do for the Lord, that kind of stuff. Like it was just this, it's such a mind, because it really did connect. It really did make a huge difference. And, usually the question usually we pose in this, Brandon, also, and for people listening, is that we ask, hey, how did you connect to the Restoration Club? And the funny thing was, you were technically a part of the genesis of this, because at that first Wild at Heart boot camp that Jeff was at, that's where the idea came down pen to pad. And like, that's where this is. And that's why he's in the RV, and then he meets Danny and Dave, and all this stuff happens. And then we're here, what, 3 years, Danny? Maybe 3.5?
4.
Maybe now. 4. How'd this happen? Here we are 4 years later, and all the people that we've traversed alongside of, and the places we've gone, the things we've done, the people have heard stories, and people have been restored because of a game, but more importantly, because of connection. Because we will talk all the time, like, go out and spend 4 hours together playing a round of golf, and you can just play a round of golf and be done and go home. Or you can spend 4 hours really cultivating something strong. And that is connection. So I feel like you nailed exactly what we hope people would get out of the game of golf. And that's getting that connecting point.
Yeah. It's been a huge blessing.
Yeah, Brandon, I think you can officially own being the only person to be connected to Restoration Club via a hot tub. So you can go ahead and own that one. But being integrated into Restoration Club, being around some of the guys, obviously we hope we can get you out to even more events and get even more integrated. But I was curious to kind of ask if you could even bridge what you're doing in building community and what our heart is to build community, and maybe speak to guys who have eliminated themselves from thinking like, I can do that, I need that, how do I do that? What does that look like? What does that look like, I guess, from your lens and what we're trying to build and what you're trying to build? And what would you say to guys in terms of those kind of on the outskirts of thinking, I don't really know how to do that, how to get into that. What does that look like for me?
Yeah, I think, it's kind of the same thing. We teach our kids is just to be brave and get yourself out there. I think so many guys are just afraid that they don't have anything to offer, or that, hey, I can go this time, but I'm not sure if I can go next time. Or, I think there's a lot of, we take ourselves out of the game so quickly. It's the Wayne Gretzky quote, you miss 100% of the shots you never take. And I just think, man, you got to take your shots. And it seems simple and cheesy and whatever, but hey, if you got an opportunity to go hang with the guys and it's for 45 minutes, go do it. If you got an opportunity to go, catch up with somebody and grab lunch, go do it. Grab a cup of coffee, whatever it is in your place. Again, I think the enemy wants us to get isolated and alone. And when we get in that place, the noise just kind of goes up, right? And the walls go up and all the other things go up. And I think, for the ministry that we're a part of, it's so effective because guys are just open, and we're doing about quarterly, like, guys meetings. We meet at a brewery locally and we have a guest speaker come, and we're about to put on our first marriage retreat, which I'm pretty pumped about.
Nice.
And that's been pretty cool because my wife's been a part of that, and just to be able to do it together. It's with Pablo from Wild Sons, who was kind of a part of Wild Art. Him and his wife are going to come up. We're going to do a 1-day retreat. And yeah, I think with Restoration Club and with everything else, I think it's just, you got to put yourself out there. You got to get involved in some way. You got to show up, and that sounds simple, but it's scary. And I know it can be scary too. And I just think that when we're able to put ourselves in a place of vulnerability, God will just come back tenfold. And so I think just the encouragement of getting involved in any way you can, showing up when you can, however you can, and just, asking the Lord to show up, and He will.
It reminds me of first tee jitters. And so everybody gets over that ball the first time, especially when you're playing with people you don't know. It's kind of like making a step into joining our Discord channel, or sending a DM because you want to talk, or even coming to one of our events. It's like, I don't know if I can, or the value that we don't feel sometimes, but like, you're standing over this ball, like a little bit nervous. What are they going to say? What are people thinking as I'm standing up here and all that? And it's like, honestly, it's funny. After you usually get off the first tee, everything feels great. You're like, oh, okay, this is okay. And well, yeah, it was okay even on the first tee. So it's like, take that first step, put the tee in the ground, put the ball on it, and let's just let it rip and connect. And I think that can go such a long way for people, getting past that first bit. And it's probably important that we would also create environments that are inclusive,
For sure.
that are safe. There's a word, a safe place, and a place that is full of the thing that we desire. That's love and value and validation. Like, that's such an important piece. Why not create more spaces like that? And we just happen to be doing it with a little white ball running around. That's cool.
And Brandon, I was going to say, even just hearing more of your story, even if it's just to you, but I feel like it's for some others as well. I feel like your story, one, is a great indication. I'm sure you've already heard it and already addressed it, but your circumstances are not your identity. And I think just hearing your story, man, and I'm sure there's plenty of people listening to this that have thought, I've already eliminated myself. I'm not worthy of that. That's not for me. I don't know what that looks like. Um, but I think your story is just a confirmation that we are always one generation from surrender of changing our family line and our lineage and what that looks like to surrender to Christ. And so if that's for anybody else, even if, like I said, it's just for you, Brandon, I just want to remind you of that. But I think it's for some other people too, to think like you are one choice away from changing your line and what that looks like moving forward. And I think God wants to come alongside you to do that.
Yeah, thanks, Danny. I appreciate that. I received that word too because it's true. And I mean, it'd be great to say that, yeah, hey, I got adopted and life was great from here on out. And it's just, unfortunately, it's not the story, right? The story still has so much twists and turns. And my wife and I had fertility issues, and we had all kinds of issues with getting pregnant, and with kids, and then when we did get pregnant, issues with that, and all kinds of different things. And man, it's just, to your point though, like, God has just continued to be faithful and continue to show up. And yeah, it's I mean, I sit back and I see the generations before me, and the cards are stacked against all of us, right, in different ways, and the enemy has this great plan. And yeah, it's God's faithfulness and his grace that I look back and I'm just so grateful for what he's done, and where we're at, and the ability that we have. I say the greatest job I ever had is being a dad, because I think, to your point, if we can get that right, and lead our kids to the Lord, and raise them in a place where they know who they are, they're validated, they're seen. And I think the generational impact and the change that it will have is nothing. There's nothing greater we could ever go out and do or accomplish compared to something like that. And I just think that we're all doing that. We're all striving for that. And that doesn't mean we're perfect and all of those things, but I think showing up, and showing up every day, and asking for the Lord's help. Jesus, help me in this. And I think what we're doing now, it's just, I put my head on the pillow every night, and I just, if it's my last, I am so, again, I keep referencing the Danny Woodhead thing, and I just turned 42, and just kind of like, I truly believe, guys, my best days are ahead. And I've done some pretty amazing things. And like, I won't go into the details of some of my kids' stories and some of the things, but like, God's faithfulness, it just keeps getting better. We had our miscarriage in 2015, October 13th. And, 5 years to the day, I walked out of the hospital with my son in my hands, to the day.
Redemption.
Yeah, I was just going to say the same thing.
like I just truly believe that, like, what we're a part of it's just incredible. And I'm excited to wake up the next day and see what God's going to do. That doesn't mean I don't have, especially with my story, dealt with a ton of trauma and anxiety and all that kind of stuff. And, but man, God has continued to show up, and he will continue to do so. And I'm grateful. And like I said, nothing is wasted. Nothing is wasted. And so it's cool to see what he's going to do and continue to do in our lives. And I'm just excited to be a part of my kids' lives and what their stories are going to mean, and the impact they're going to have.
It's well said.
We it's funny, we have that verse in our kitchen above the exit way out of it that says nothing is wasted. And sometimes I'll joke talking about food, like, I'm not going to let anything go to waste, but really it is about the story, and whatever happens in our life, good or bad. God is not doing it just because and allowing it just because. It's more that it's like everything has a reason and has a purpose for what it can do in our life. And it just, hopefully it all points back to who God is as the ultimate author and creator of it all. And that we can give that ultimate praise to it, which is such a powerful thing to realize that every single thing that happens for is not just against us, but it's also for us. As long as we submit to it and allow God to work his power through it. Love it. Danny, normally we ask the question, but you kind of like,
I was going to say, I'm hoping he's got one in the pocket still, because I think he might have revealed his favorite memory.
Nailed it. He nailed his favorite moment on a golf course without a club. So it's hiking through the creeks, right? That's the move, Brandon?
Yeah, going through the creeks with the ball finder. And yeah, I'm one of those weird guys who still has a ball finder in his bag, because even if I don't hit a ball in the water, I cannot not stop and pick up those close ones, you know?
Don't tell my dad. He still got one. He thought he was the only one still.
I still got one. No, the kids love it, you know?
Brandon, Danny's dad, and Ben Thankachan are the three people in the world that still have a ball finder in their bags.
Shout out, Ben.
That's awesome. B, I can't, and we can't thank you enough for sharing your story. Every single time I've been around you, whether it's eating lunch together, whether it's across the country at a conference, whether it's on a phone call, text message, whatever, I walk away with something new every single time. I'm not blowing smoke here. This is not a fake story. This is a real thing. And I'm already sitting with this going, I can't wait to listen to this again, because, oh yeah, I need to hear that again. And I want to hear that piece again. I want to be reminded that it's not just about life and life to the fullest. I need to be reminded that the enemy is out there that wants to destroy me. And so I need to be on guard and be ready and prepared and lean into the Lord that I have. So I'm like, all these things are running through. So just thanks for being you, and for being your vulnerable self, for being your authentic self, and for, I don't know, bringing a peace to this world that is, I don't know, it just feels like it's few and far between, man. May more light shine like yours does.
Thanks. I mean, I appreciate those words. I receive those, but it's because of my relationships with guys like you and Marsh. I mean, you know, Brennan Manning has a quote that says, "Find like-hearted kings and sign treaties, and when they're at war, you're at war." And that just idea of just doing life together, sharpening each other and being there for each other is really what's allowed me to continue to grow and continue to press on even when, you know, the dark days come. And so I thank you, and I think Danny, you know, as we get to know each other more too, and just Marsh has been an incredible instrument for so much good, and just encouraging guys, especially. And, you know, I know he's vulnerable and open, talking about his anxiety and the depression and stuff. And just, I think it's guys like you that I'm so grateful to have in my corner, in my foxhole, you know, and when you're at war, I'm at war, we can reach out to each other. And God has been so gracious in bringing men like you into my life. And what Restoration Club is and stands for, I believe in it wholeheartedly. And I think the reminder of us pressing more into that, being brave, being vulnerable, being open to do life with each other, on the golf course, in business, in the tough times and the easy times, because all of it is part of life. And I think if we can get to a place where we realize that God has brought that tapestry together for a time to create such a beautiful thing, if we can tap into that, it will be awesome. And I'm so grateful for you guys. Thanks for all you're doing. Thanks for these podcasts. Thanks for the work behind the scenes and all that goes into it. Really appreciate it. Because I mean, on those days where I'm having a tough time, I will plug in, I will listen, and it's so encouraging. So thank you.
We appreciate that, brother.
Thanks,
it's a good thing to be together in this club. So thanks for being a part of it, and can't wait to catch up with you soon.
And if we wait too long, you're gonna be a single handicap by the time we see you, man. So
give me another 6 months.
Yeah. That's right.
And if I'm down your way in Florida, I know where to get a steak. That's for sure.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Love for a steak. We'll go fish. We'll go surf. We'll go out on the golf course at night and find some golf balls.
Oh, there we go. Now
we're talking. Awesome, man. Well, thanks, B. We'll talk soon.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Okay, later.
Man, well, that is season 4, episode 5 with Brandon Wolfe. I know you knew his story. I knew part of his story, but not to that extent, man. And just blown away. Appreciate him showing up, willing to share what he has been through and how good God has been to him.
Yeah, in fact, you just said that, and the only thing that was going through my head the whole time was, as we said in that episode, was God is good. and nothing is wasted. Brandon is just the epitome of a life that God has carved into, and it's one of submission, and it's beautiful. So I hope everyone loved that.
A great guy that certainly may not be on the course as much as our listeners, but he's trending, man. He's getting the game dialed in.
100%. I mean, how do you cut your handicap in half in 8 months? The key was, he said, play more. When you only have 2 rounds a year, it's hard to stack those up to create a good handicap.
But I love that he said he loves flushing one like we all do, but it's certainly been more about the community and the relationships he's creating on the course for him too. Well, guys, we're looking forward to bringing you more episodes, but we really hope you enjoyed that one. As always, hop into the Discord channel. Love hearing from everybody across the country at all the chapters. Looking forward to hopefully putting together some great events for you guys as well. But follow us, as always, at restoration_club on Instagram, restorationclub.co at the website. And Ryan, man, until next time, keep swinging.
Keep swinging.